Okay, so we're going to review solving by factoring. So we're going to solve quadratic equations by factoring. Quickly, I want to go back over the steps for that. So the steps to solving by factoring, the first thing you want to do is set that entire equation equal to 0. So you want the whole thing to be in this form so that the whole equation is equal to 0. Once it's equal to 0, the next thing you want to do is factor, and you want to make sure that you factor that completely. Then you're going to set each factor equal to 0. And then you're going to solve the equation, or the two equations that you'll actually have. Okay, so let's kind of do some example problems to kind of see how this works. So you would just be asked to solve the equation. There we are. Number 1, and they'd give you an equation, something like 7x squared plus 8x equals x squared. Now, the first thing that I see is that this is not equal to 0. I do need it to equal 0. So the first thing I want to do is subtract x squared from both sides, because when I do that, these two, x squared minus x squared, is 0. So 7x squared minus x squared is 6x squared plus 8x, and that whole thing is equal to 0. Now I'm ready to factor my equation. So I notice that they have a greatest common factor. They both are divisible by 2. They're also both divisible by x. So I'm going to go ahead and factor out a 2x. So what times 2x gives me 6x squared? That would be 3x. What times 2x gives me 8x would be 4. And all of that is equal to 0. Now that I've factored it, I want to set both factors equal to 0. Because what this equation is telling me, that something here, 2 times something, that is multiplied by this binomial. When I multiplied these two things, they equaled 0. So that means either 2x is 0 or 3x plus 4 is 0. So I need to look at both of those options. So either 2x equals 0 or 3x plus 4 is equal to 0. That way when I multiply them, the whole equation is still equal to 0. So I'm going to solve both of these equations. So I would divide both sides by 2 here. And I end with x is equal to 0. In this other equation, I would subtract 4 from both sides. So 3x would equal negative 4. Divide both sides by 3. And x is equal to negative 4/3. I would write these together as a set. Traditionally, we put our smallest number first, so I'm going to go ahead and list the negative number first. So that's the basic concept. Let's look at another equation. So let's say we have x squared plus 10x plus 21 is equal to 0. Notice that this equation is already equal to 0, which is quite lovely because that means step 1 is already done for me. So now I'm ready to factor. I see that I have a trinomial, so I'm going to factor this trinomial. I know that it's going to factor in 2 sets of parentheses. This thing will still equal 0. So remember, the first 2 in my parentheses are going to equal this first term here. So x times x is what gives me x squared. Hold on. Okay, then the next thing you want to do is make sure that these last two terms multiply to give you 21. So things that multiply to give me 21, remember later I have to add them to get that negative 10. So I have like 7 and 3, that's an option. Ooh, I think that's actually going to work. Let's go 7 and 3. 7 and 3. Now, I need this guy. I'm going to get this guy by multiplying these. So 7 times x is 7x. I'm going to add that to 3 times x, which is 3x. That does give me 10. I need negative 10x. So if I make both of them negative, they do add to give me negative 10x. Now I have it factored. I'm going to set both my factors equal to 0. So either x minus 7 equals 0 or x minus 3 equals 0. Then I'm going to solve the equation. So I would add 7 to both sides, and x equals 7. Over here, I would add 3 to both sides, and I have x equals 3. I would write my answers as a solution set, and traditionally, we put the smallest number first. Okay, one more example, and then we're finished with this one. So let's see if we can find something really, really juicy. Okay. Now this equation is absolutely lovely. The very first thing I see is that obviously this is not equal to 0. So I'm going to go ahead and set this equal to 0. I'm going to do that by doing the opposite. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 2 and add 3x. Remember, what thou doest to one side, thou shalt doest to the other. Please only combine like terms. So I have 4x squared here plus 44x plus 96. And now all of that is equal to 0. The next thing I see is it looks like I have a greatest common factor. Now, I would love to take out a greatest common factor because these numbers are huge and I'm not feeling it. So let's see, I think 4 will go into all of these. So I'm going to factor out my greatest common factor of 4. So that would leave me with x squared plus 11x plus 24. Okay, now remember, it is factored, but we have to factor completely, so I want to make sure that I continue to factor. So let's see here. I want to factor this trinomial. I know trinomials factor into two binomials, and it's going to be x times x. That's how I'm going to get x squared. Now, things that multiply to give me 24, I have 4 and 6, I believe. I also have 8 and 3. I'm going to lean towards 8 and 3. I want to make sure that I end up with an 11. So I have 3x plus 8x is 11x, and I need them both to be positive. So now I'm ready to set each factor equal to 0. Well, my first factor is actually 4. So either 4 equals 0, x plus 8 equals 0, or x plus 3 equals 0. Well, we know that 4 does not equal 0, so that's not going to give me a solution. However, these other two will. Either x is -8 or x is -3. And I'll go ahead and list my solutions as a set, and that's it.